There is a surprising Gemara, and I was actually discussing it a little bit with others, so you might have already heard some of pieces of this. The Gemara says at the end of Makos that David Hamelech reduced the mitzvos to 11. The Gemara suggests that there were others who reduced it to 3, to 2, and finally it was Bo Chabakuk ve'emidon al achat, and he got it down to 1. Shenemar v'tzadik be'emunah so yichyeh. Rashi explains, what is this business about reducing the mitzvos? Rashi says, Shebitchila hayu tzadikim. In the olden days, before David HaMelech, they were very righteous. V'hayu yicholim lekabel ol mitzvos harbe. And they could accept on themselves the yoke of many mitzvos. Aval doros ha'achronim lo hayu tzadikim kol kach. But the later generations were not so righteous. V'im bo'u lishmor kulon ein lecha adam shezoche. And if they're trying to observe all of them, no one would merit. No one would merit. What does that mean? But David HaMidon, David HaMelech came and put them down to 11. Kedei sheyizku, again that same word, that they should merit. Im yekaimu 11 Yud Aleph mitzvos halalu, v'chein kol she'od shar doros shalmata holchin umimatin oso. And the subsequent generations, going down to Chabakuk, reduced the number still further. Now, what is being implied by not being merit? I mean, a person can do lots of wonderful things, can do many mitzvos. What does it mean? Ein lecha adam shezoche. And he brought it down to a smaller number, kedei sheyizku im yekaimu, that they'll merit if they uphold them. It seems that what Rashi is communicating is that there is a core merit. There's an idea of a core merit. The other mitzvos that a person does are more by way of in addition to. I don't want to use the word bonus because the Torah is not about bonuses, but there's a core, and if you want to think of it as access to Olam Haba, access to eternity, you want to think of it as the basis, the base, a minimum. I also think that there's an idea that you need to have one mitzvah that you can really fulfill fully. And when you have one mitzvah that you can fulfill fully, so the other mitzvahs are able to get in the door. So a person could come after 120 with a whole sack full of mitzvahs, but he doesn't have one mitzvah that he is fulfilling fully. And so he can't get in the door. It sounds a little bit cruel, but the idea of eternity is built on more than just getting a bunch of things right. It starts with getting something completely right. And it seems that there was an assumption that they couldn't get them all right. In the world of Brisk, they always talk about their learning halacha to try to at least fulfill one mitzvah fully and properly. So Chabakuk finds this one access point. Everybody can do this. And that mitzvah is called Emunah. Now, that's a very surprising mitzvah to say that it's everybody can do this. I don't know that most people would think of Emunah as an easy mitzvah. In fact, if you have the time to look at the Drushos Haran, he talks about the fact that the level of Emunah that Moshe Rabbeinu achieved to be able to interface with Hashem, Ka'asher Yedaber Ish El Re'ehu, that he could converse with Hashem and still be in this world, still be with all of his senses, that was a miracle. A person can't do that. It's not a level that a person can achieve. It's a level of Emunah that Hashem helped Moshe get up to. He says it's actually necessary that Hashem did so because Hashem also said that there'll never be anybody else who he will do that miracle for. And that's how he can guarantee that there will be nobody whose prophecy will supersede that of Moshe Rabbeinu. Because after all, somebody could come and say that somebody else's level of Nevuah was greater. And the answer is nobody else's level of Nevuah was greater because even Moshe's level of Nevuah was miraculous. And with that Nevuah is essentially a level of Nevuah, a level of Emunah. That's what Nevuah is. And with that miraculous level of Nevuah, the Torah says that at some point, the incident of the striking of the rock, Yan lo he'emantem bi, there was yet a failure of Nevuah. So that's setting the bar pretty high. If you tell me that Emunah is the easy mitzvah that everybody should be able to access, then speaking about Emunah in these terms, and that Moshe's level of Emunah was such that it was miraculously given to him, and yet he still fell short. There was more Emunah to be had than the Emunah of Moshe Rabbeinu, who's able to communicate with Hashem, Ka'asher Yedaber Ish El Re'ehu. That doesn't sound like it's pointing to an easy mitzvah. We could even add to the question when the Mesilas Yesharim, when the Ramchal talks about davening, he sets it out as the Aleph Beis of davening. What is the Aleph Beis of davening, says the Ramchal? That he should think about it a little bit and realize that he's speaking to Hashem when he's davening. Ka'asher Yedaber Ish El Re'ehu. Like he's speaking. Now, that's using the same words that the Ran referred to as a miraculous level of prophecy, level of Emunah that was granted to Moshe miraculously. And yet he's using those words in almost a commonplace way. He says that anybody who thinks about it, b'me'atis bonenus v'simas leiv, just think it through. Think it through. Who are you talking to? Well, you think you're talking to your car door? Who do you think you're talking to? You're talking to Hashem. Ka'asher Yedaber Ish El Re'ehu. So how could something that is being described by the Ran as being a level that nobody can realistically reach, a level that even after he's given this miraculous boost, there's still more Emunah to go, and the Ramchal's talking about it as though, just give it a little bit of thought, and you'll realize that you're speaking directly to Hashem. Kasher Yedaber Ish El Re'ehu. And that for Habakkuk to be referring to this as, You know what? Can't get access to all the mitzvahs. Those are for the big tzaddikim. You know what? We get it down to Emunah. Get it down to Emunah. Is Emunah a superstar mitzvah? Or is Emunah an accessible, easy mitzvah? What is it? And the Alter Slobodka asks the question, and I'd like to suggest what I think his answer is. It's not so explicit in the words. You look at it at the bottom of the page, not as explicit, but it is, I believe, what he's saying. And that is that if a mitzvah or anything, any goal has a terminus, it has an endpoint, then the most any part of that mitzvah can be is a step towards that endpoint. If something has an endpoint, so you're writing tefillin, you know what you need to get to. You need to get to 4 parshios of tefillin in the Shel Yad and 4 in the Shel Rosh, and you know where you need to get to. And of course, it's a mitzvah to be writing them. And as you're writing them, you're moving along towards the goal. The goal is to have a pair of tefillin. The goal is to put the tefillin on. What if the goal is infinite? If the goal is infinite, the whole mechanism starts to shift. Because if the goal is infinite, you can't say that something that I'm doing is moving towards a goal. A goal, by definition, if it's infinite, then everything in the present moment gains new significance. An infinite goal means that the present moment is everything. So that means that Habakkuk chose specifically an infinite goal to say everybody can do this. And the Ramchal is saying everybody can be talking to Hashem. Kasher Yedaber Ishal Re'ehu. Once you acknowledge that Emunah is infinite, then you can do it at any time. I suggested a rather odd mashal for this. The odd mashal is from the horrible folks who weave in and out of traffic. And you might ask them, excuse me, you passed me, you passed him, you passed 3 cars. What do you have now? It's not a race where there's a finish line and you get to the finish line and then you won the race. You passed me and you passed him and you passed the 3rd guy. There's an infinite number of cars in front of you. You'll never win the race. And not only that, but some of them are going to go to their homes. They're going to leave the road. Some of them go to their work. They'll leave the road. Some of them will go to where they're going to shop. They'll leave the road. So in what way could you possibly win this race? And the answer is that the person who's racing around knows this. He knows that it's an infinite goal. He can never achieve the goal. And that's why he gets a kick out of every 1 car that he passes. See, if you're running a race where there's a finish line, the fact that you passed 1 person is meaningless if you don't win the race. If a person in a racing car passes 1 person and then his engine burns out or his tires burn out or whatever else happens and he has to pull over and he doesn't make it any further in the race, you would not say, wow, but he passed 1 car. There's no charge. There's no excitement associated with his passing 1 car. But on the road where it's infinite, then suddenly passing 1 car becomes significant. I don't want to push the muscle too hard. The muscle that would like to see that muscle disappear. So I don't want to push the muscle too hard. But if you think about what Emunah is, that if Emunah is an infinite goal, then at any moment, a person affirms Hashem hu Elokim, and he affirms Ein od milvado, or he affirms Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam. That affirmation, where he affirms Hashem as the master of the world, is everything. That affirmation is a full fulfillment of Emunah. What Moshe Rabbeinu achieved was not more than that. What he achieved was consistency. He was a ne'eman. He was doing this all the time. So that's an achievement. But in terms of being able to fulfill the mitzvah of Emunah, you can and are called on to do it 100 times a day. By reciting 100 brachos, 100 times affirming Hashem hu Elokim, Elokeinu melech haolam. That's all you need to do. There isn't more, because it's an infinite road. There's no such thing as I achieved infinite levels of Emunah. It doesn't have any meaning. Once you talk about infinite levels, there's no achieving infinite levels. It gives the significance to every moment of a person's day and life, that he can convert that moment into Emunah. To what degree? Kasher Yedaber Ishal Re'ehu. It becomes appropriate to speak about, excuse me, becomes appropriate to speak about starting to daven. Just stop and think for a second. What do you think you're davening to? You davening to Zeus? You davening to an electric pole? Or what are you davening to? Just stop and think. So what are you talking about? There's such levels of Emunah, prophecy, etc. But those are all infinite. And so the message of what Habakkuk did by taking it down to Emunah was, he said, everybody has access to this. Everybody who is not brain dead, everybody who just stops and thinks for a moment can fulfill this mitzvah. And it's only somebody who is either rejecting foundations and principles of Emunah, or fails to activate his thought process at all. So those people are out of the game. They're out of the game. But it doesn't take so much for a person to affirm. Maybe for some people it's a big job. I don't know. But in any case, it's one that anyone who wants to can accomplish it 100%. And that 100% happens when the person affirms Hashem hu Elokim, or he affirms Ein od milvado, or he recites a bracha, or he answers Amen to a bracha, and he says, I affirm that what you just said, that Hashem is the one who, I affirm that to be true. And that's the answer of Amen. And so he's actually accomplishing Emunah. And with that, the person is a zoche. He's a zoche. He's a mekayim, and he's zoche. And it opens up the gates of his being able to then benefit from all of his mitzvahs, because he's now in the world of a zoche. And so Habakkuk got it down to that one mitzvah, and he chose specifically the mitzvah that is inherently infinite.